In December 2018, China separately arrested two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, in response to Canada detaining powerful Chinese businesswoman Meng Wanzhou to be extradited to the United States for fraud. Even though it was obvious to the international community that China arrested the two Canadians as political pawns, China insists they arrested them for spying. This news disturbed Seoul's expat community because Michael Spavor himself had been a longtime influential member. And on this special Seoul podcast, I talked with two of Michael Spavor's closest friends in Seoul, Jehn and Jon Dunbar. Production note, Jon Dunbar was speaking to us from his phone in a stairwell at the Korea Times, and his reception wasn't ideal. Here's my talk with them. And welcome to the Seoul Podcast. This is Joe. This week we have special guests. We have Jehn. I never ever pronounced your last name. Is it Jehn?
Jehn, yes.
Jehn, and Jon Dunbar. We are going to talk about our friend Michael Spavor, who you might have heard in the news is one of the two Canadians that are being held by China under charges of spying, but it's very obvious to anyone with a dog's brain that this is a political maneuver. They're just political prisoners in exchange for a Chinese businesswoman who is being held in Canada to be extradited to the U.S. for fraud charges. Now, we can go into that too if you want to. Anyway, welcome. Okay. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Jon and Leo. How long have you known Michael Spavor?
It's been about 30 years. I met him in Canada before I ever came to Korea. I'm currently in Korea. I've been in Korea for about 25 years. So yeah, almost 30 years.
Tell me more about him, just in general.
Okay. So we had a mutual friend in Canada, and me and this friend decided to check out Korea. Mm-hmm. And he was wanting to come along. So I really got to know him much better when we did move to Korea. It was 1996. Mm-hmm. He came a couple months after I did, and we all lived in this house in the north of Seoul. And I got to know him obviously a lot better than I did when we were living in Calgary, because we were living under the same roof. And we became quite close at that point, even closer than the original mutual friend that we both shared. So, he was a very adventurous type, which, I mean, I think we all were at that age when you go abroad. But he had a little extra spark, which was nice because I could feed off of it. And he could get me into some good trouble, if you know what I mean. He would always he would push the limits in sort of social environments that I normally wouldn't do. So in other words, he would get you into the party that you didn't know you even wanted to go to.
He seems to have taken that knack into his career as well, I would say.
Yes.
Now, Jon, could you tell us how long you knew Michael?
Yeah, much less time than Leo, only since about 2006. And actually, Leo was probably in the room at the same time. I'm not too sure. I was at a house party in Hanam-dong, and somebody mentioned there was a guy there who had lived in Pyongyang for 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I ran into Michael, figured out who he was, and I was like, so I heard you lived in Pyongyang for 6 months. That must have been really boring. And he was like, no, it was the best time of my life. And he started just telling stories about his time. And soon enough, like everybody in the party was crowded around all of this. He in just like a couple hours in 2010. 2010. He was planning to go back to North Korea, like just on a trip, and he invited people along. I was one of the people invited, and I just decided, like, what the hell, might as well go with him. So we went to North Korea for 8 days in total, and it was quite an adventure, almost living up to what he had promised originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back with him more recently in 2018, September 2018, a couple months before his abduction. So I'd actually been expecting him to come and visit when the news broke out that he was picked up on the way to the airport.
So he was coming to Seoul when he was arrested.
Yeah. So he was it was a Sunday morning, I think, like super early, or Monday morning. He messaged us for the last time. And he said that he would be in town to visit for this. He was trying to set up so he could give a lecture for the Royal Ashubic Society a few months later. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yeah, I can't wait to see my friends. He posted on Facebook a message tagging like 50 of us saying like, see you guys soon. And that was the last official message that he really sent out.
And barely has anyone has heard from him since then, too. I'm reading that diplomats are not even able to see him. No lawyers are able to visit him. So to catch everyone up on what's been happening, last Friday, his trial happened in Beijing. And it only lasted a couple of hours. As of this recording, I just checked, no verdict has been announced yet. What was disturbing about the trial was they weren't letting any international diplomats into the courtroom to observe it. They did the same thing with the other Canadian they have in custody, Michael Kovrig, who was a diplomat from Canada, but it was he had worked for a nonprofit in China. So they arrested both of them at the same time. And Michael Kovrig's trial was on Monday. And there were 23 international diplomats from Western countries and the EU trying to get in, and they were not allowed access, which I believe that violates international law. I'm not an international lawyer. But that's what's happened so far, and we're waiting to hear what happens. What are your thoughts on this so far about what's going on?
Well, I think as far as breaking international law, well, that's happened a lot recently. I don't think any powerful country obeys international law much anymore.
We're a cynic, aren't we? But no.
Well, I mean, I'm actually not pessimistic. I'm always a bit more optimistic. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you see laws being broken. Imagine if I was in a situation where I broke any kind of laws that you have seen countries break. I wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah,
I would be in prison immediately if I indeed did break the law. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just not a surprise, right?
Right.
I think China will do what they want. America will do what they want.
Yeah,
and that's just it, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's a Canadian or two Canadians in being held. Because China is trying to divide us by taking on middle powers, There's not much Canada can do. Like, can we, really break our agreement with the U.S. about the extradition treaty? The Americans wouldn't like that. So the attempt is to put us in an impossible situation and have us break our own rules. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, the only way out of this is for the U.S. to do something. Possibly rescind Meng Wanzhou's extradition order. I mean, she's been in house arrest for 2 years. So, what more do they want? So yeah, it's a big problem, and it highlights the two superpower countries picking on other smaller countries like Canada. And in my opinion, I wish that South Koreans and who knows, maybe North Koreans were more aware of this issue. I do know that the Hong Kong protesters were well aware of the two Michaels case as well. because, they saw it as, an example of what they were afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exposing a lot of things. Yes, exactly what you said about the middle powers. But also the contrast between the legal systems between the countries. Meng Wanzhou has she went for a hearing in January, I think January 20th. Why is that not date sticking on my brain? It was open to the public. She's been under house arrest, but she's been able to see friends and family come and go as they please. She just can't leave the house.
Yeah, she still complains about it a lot to the media.
Yeah. The two Michaels, though, have been in solitary confinement. From what I hear, they have been in rooms where the lights have never turned off, so they're having to sleep under harsh lighting all the time, and they don't get to see anyone, which psychologically, that's just going to screw you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little different from a penthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they have been allowed to receive blindfolds for sleeping. I'm not too sure about that.
Okay.
I read an article about their wish lists. Michael Spavor was asking for T-shirts and things like that. So they receive things. I'm not sure how it works. We don't know enough about that.
Yeah. Everything is so secret, and it really does reveal that. Also, to note, this happened in 2018.
December 2018.
Yeah, and this is all a Trump administration act. I'm not sure if the new administration will have a differing point of view on this. Investigating.
Well, Biden has mentioned that, but I don't think he's done anything more than Trump. To be honest, the situation was started by the U.S. Backing out of the Iran deal. And then Meng was found guilty or accused of defrauding investors about the effect of sanctions on Iran towards Huawei. So, I think even pinning it on Trump for all the weird things he's done is it's a little too unpredictable,
Yeah. In fact, Trump didn't even know that she was arrested ahead of time. He was in a dinner with Xi Jinping when this was happening. The only person I knew, John Bolton knew ahead of time that it was going to happen.
Yeah. But how could anybody predict? It's break a deal with Iran and then China will abduct 2 Canadians. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weirder than, the Joker's plan in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I've seen reading up on this. It's really dividing Canada up politically as well. I've seen a lot of people arguing both sides of the case. The Canadian Chargé d'Affaires showed up on Monday and Friday, but the ambassador from Canada to China did not show up.
What's the side against them, though? Is it Canadians should not be in China? That's the only, opposing Canadian viewpoint I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a point to that. I have Canadian friends working in China right now, and I'm wondering why they're there. They're in danger if the situation escalates. Why are they there? So, yeah, other than that, I don't know what else people can really oppose, unless they buy into China's weird propaganda. It's all whataboutism, Canada has been racist, so it's okay what we do to these 2 Canadians or whatever.
Oh, boy.
But I have seen those kind of things, that kind of rhetoric used.
Well, China has understood the culture war, more recently, and now they're using it. You can see that they're now calling America a racist country. Now, for China to call America a racist country is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they're using it because they know it's an effective tool. What's dividing America right now? It's not the Republicans and the Democrats. It's not. It's the culture war. And you can pick sides, blue and red, sure. And the two basic sides of the culture war might fit, one side in the red, one side in the blue, but it's really more of the culture war itself, even if those parties were to disappear. And China can use that against us, especially when you bring up, the Uyghur Muslims or Tibet or Taiwan.
Which Anthony Blinken was doing this week.
Yeah. And anybody can point fingers, and it's not entirely wrong. Sometimes you can make a case for these things. But when China is doing it and weaponizing these arguments against us to divide our countries, then we really, have got to be smarter than just oh yeah, we are a terrible country. Let's let China do what it wants and violate the rights of our Canadians abroad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my reading of it is that the U.S. clumsily got into this situation. Yeah. They were using the Iran excuse to arrest her, but it looked like the deeper concern was they were accusing Huawei of corporate espionage.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley.
Which, judging by their reaction, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. And they were trying to find something to tag on Huawei, trying to get someone from that company to get in trouble. And we found this Iran thing where Meng Wanzhou had transferred money that was supposed to go to Huawei, but was going to Skylife, and Skylife had traded something with Iran in 2015, and Skylife is supposed to be a shadow company of Huawei or something like that. A shell company.
Something like that.
Yeah. And so it's a technicality they got her on.
Yeah.
Well, Al Capone got busted because of his taxes.
That's true.
You use whatever you can.
Yeah, that is true.
And what's really going on? I mean, if you didn't know the history of the 20s, you would think, oh, Al Capone was just arrested for tax evasion. But of course, we all know it wasn't. It was because he was a murderer and illegal sales of very poor alcohol. But I mean, we know that. But what if we didn't know
that was the real crime, was the poor alcohol?
Probably so. But I mean, if you don't know the whole story, and we don't,
no,
I don't think many people know the whole story. How many Chinese people, the citizens, the good people of China, if they know this story, what do they think? They think Michael Spavor is a spy.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't they believe that?
And revenge for colonial historic issues.
I mean, maybe there's some dissident characters that might look further into it and get closer to the truth. But if you're told that your country has a foreigner in prison who goes from, North Korea to China to South Korea often, you might totally buy the story that he is involved in espionage. Of course, we know that's completely untrue.
Yeah. Michael has been an interesting person to know over the years, because a lot of people assume that someone involved with North Korea that'll trigger quite a few, you could say, for hearing that. But I think, John, you said in an article or something that Michael didn't have a political bone in his body.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's one reason he was able to function in North Korea. He would just leave any kind of stuff about human rights or whatever aside, because you have to engage with North Korea. I don't even know his opinions on communism or capitalism at all.
And we should point out, Michael was instrumental in the 2014 visit of Dennis Rodman with Kim Jong-un.
That's right.
He was he was present for Rodman's second and third visit, but not his first, which was with Vice magazine.
Okay,
yeah,
that's right.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, I was actually there when he got the contact for this happening. Believe it or not, in 2010, we were at when we were on that North Korea trip. There was one other guy who was on a solo trip. He was an American guy who was like a wealthy scientist of some kind. I forget his name right now, but you can look it up online and find it. And he was traveling North Korea alone, so he would be with like his North Korean guides and just him, so he could try to practice his North Korean dialect. We met him in the Yanggakdo bar, and I kind of had a debate with him about stuff. Michael got along with him a lot better. And this guy later went on to organize Rodman's trips. So when he needed somebody to be an interpreter, he called Michael. And that's why Michael was involved in those trips.
Because Michael is very fluent, not only in Korean, but the North Korean dialect.
Yeah. He was, I believe, the interpreter for Dennis Rodman into Korean, actually. So like when Rodman spoke to Kim Jong-un, Michael would say what he said. I believe, anyway.
Okay. So,
and by the way, me and his old friends from Canada, we would call him Spavor, but it's actually Spavor.
Okay.
Really?
So
I'm famous for mispronouncing everyone's last name.
We would always just call him Spavor.
Between Spavor and Spavor.
Well, the thing is, I say Spavor, but my brain says Spavor because I want to.
No, you're right. You're right, Joe. It's Spavor. We were the only ones that called him Spavor, like me and 3 other people. So, when I talk about him, casually, I say Michael Spavor just because I'm used to it, but it's Spavor. Yeah.
Spavor.
I once had a TV journalist ask me the correct pronunciation of his name, and I was like, I have no idea. I've looked for the information on it online. I don't know where it's from or anything. Like, what country is Spavor from?
Now, my memories of Michael, and I haven't had as much contact with him as you two have. I must have met him at some party or some bar get together, but I got to know more when I was trying to make connections with the Seoul Tourism Organization, and he was with them at that time. And so, goodness, we were involved in some project together. I remember, it was just we just went to this. He knew this little bar, I think in Hewa. And it looked like a second floor of a house, and he and I just sat there and just talked into the wee hours of the evening together. I just found him such an interesting individual.
Yeah.
We've kept in touch. I did mention on last show that he did contact me out of the blue and asked if I was interested in doing a food tour of North Korea.
You remember around when that was?
I want to say around the 2014, 2015, because I remember coming home and mentioning it to my wife, and she says, "Don't you dare go."
The food's not that good, Joe.
I had 1 or 2 good meals.
Really?
Actually, yeah. My first trip, Michael took us to the restaurant attached to a factory near where he lived for that 6 months when he was with something called the KCC or something like that. And it was a restaurant for the workers of this thing, and it was just like a barbecue restaurant, and they had like galbi and like yangkochi from China and stuff. It was a really good meal, really fun.
Lamb skewers.
Afterwards, they gave us lamb skewers. Afterwards, they took us to another room and gave us Pyongyang ramen, and it was really, really excellent.
Wow.
That was one of my 2 really good memories of North Korean food.
That shatters a few ideas people have about North Korea in general, that people are eating meat. enjoying
Yeah, well, it
barbecue?
wasn't a factory, so.
Huh.
But I mean, like you'd expect them to show the nice food for when foreigners get there, and that happened in a lot of places. I noticed in my last trip, everywhere we went, they would give us something that was like really flavorless French fries that weren't fried, and yeah, it was like.
You sure they weren't at Maloney's?
Oh,
I loved Maloney's fries.
You don't know what foreigners are going to appreciate in their cuisine. And like if you read travel guides and stuff, you can see like people complaining all the time. But there are places that you can go that are really good. And it takes people like Michael to know where to go.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I liked about him, is that he did highlight the people in North Korea. That was his passion.
Yeah, our last trip, like he made a point of bringing groups to restaurants, personally and vouched for, rather than tourist places.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really another thing. On our first trip, he took us to the pizza restaurant in Pyongyang, and it was seriously the best pizza I've ever had in Korea.
Seriously?
Really?
I mean, that's like saying you're the tallest building in Wyoming, but still.
Like this restaurant, it was created by Kim Jong-il. He sent some of his chefs to Sicily to train under masters, and they came back to North Korea and like made authentic pizza with the right ingredients without any compromise or nativization attempts. Like they didn't put, sugar on it or anything like that. And I just got like a salami pizza or whatever. It was hard to mess up, but it was super good. Other people got weirder pizzas, but even like, stuff that had like pineapple on it or whatever, which I'm not against. And even they said like, this is really good. And seriously, there was just something about the sauce and the cheese and the crust that was just like amazing. Like maybe I was a little more starved for great pizza back then, but like, yeah, you've heard about North Korea having better beer than South Korea, which it did at the time.
Yeah.
I think it also might have for pizza, except there was like one good place.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's as much pressure to localize if Kim Jong-il is making sure it's done.
You
don't have to worry about the consumers.
That'd be Kim Jong-un, of course.
Well, but
Kim Jong-un now has
was it Kim Jong-un? But back then it was Kim Jong-il. That
yeah.
got the.
He was still alive until like the end of next year. I heard the most popular restaurant in Pyongyang now sounds a lot more localized and like with Korean tastes in mind. So I've heard it's much less good and cheaper.
Cheaper.
Yeah. So kind of a predictable train. Yeah. Or at least cheaper tasting. I don't know. Never went to that one. Michael didn't recommend it.
So what do you think? I love hearing stories about Michael too. I mean, I just and I'm always worried that others out there who don't have his best interests in mind would want to use him to make some type of political statement, political point. I'm trying to get past that, because I think some people would think that since he did business with North Korea, that he had some type of political agenda, which we say he did not. But they might use that against him.
Well, he summed it up for me in one anecdote that he told, like why he was involved with North Korea. After the Rodman visits, or during the Rodman visits, what they would do, like there was a lot of heavily publicized things happening, but on the side of that, they were doing like basketball workshops for like disabled North Korean kids and things like that. And Michael was disappointed people didn't report on that. And he said at one point, I think at one of these events, but I'm honestly not sure, and I can't really ask him. He said that he heard from a North Korean boy who was like, I don't like America, but my leader has an American friend, so I want an American friend. And, I think that's just what he saw. He saw like the possibility to actually make a change in a way that nobody else was successfully doing.
Yeah.
So, like his motivation, if it was ideological, which I don't think was at all, it was based on getting people to set aside their differences.
Yeah.
and have adventures guaranteed.
It points out more starkly that diplomacy is not just done by the diplomats in the military. It is the people on the streets. It is the, in quotes, expats. That actually do affect the hearts and minds of where the people wherever they go. And
and I would like to add that not only was Michael bridging North Korea and the West, he was also in some way, and I don't know any details, bridging North Korea and China. So the Chinese certainly were aware of his activities and benefiting from it. He would bring Chinese investors in, give them tours and stuff, I think. And so he was their friend and he was helping. So yeah, I don't know why, this benefits China to do. Like they're shooting themselves from the foot.
They're doing that. I think it was very short-sighted, and then they found themselves in this, and then they can't go back now that they've opened it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people also assume that North Korea is wrapped around China's finger and will just do whatever China wants. But we find out, no, it's a lot more independent than that. And Korea itself has a history of subservience and pushing back up against China. And North Korea seems to continue that tradition. And so it's really interesting that Michael is still has to bridge between China and North Korea.
Well, if I can just sort of tag on to what we're talking as far as any political ideologies, I've spent I don't know how many hours with Michael, and I don't think we spent 10 minutes talking about politics the whole time. He is not interested in it. Mm-hmm. He's interested in individuals. He's interested in cultures, people in general. He can, if he wants to be your friend, he'll be your friend. And he looks for the best in people. I think you two would agree with that.
I agree with that.
He's always looking for what's good and ignoring anything that might be negative in some way. He doesn't care about that.
I really like
He's reaching out for the best in people, and he's done that with me. And he's sort of pushed back on me when I can be going hard on someone or on something. He'll say, "Hey, Leo, why are you talking about that? Forget about it. Didn't you have a great time with those people last year? Remember that stuff?" I mean, I'm not going to give any exact details because that's just not necessary, but the guy never talked about politics.
Right.
He wasn't even interested in politics. You couldn't say whether he was a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, a liberal. You couldn't say, because he was none of those things. He was an individual, period.
That is exactly the message I hope we can get out too.
Well, it's true.
And the times I've known him, he's always been so positive about everyone. I never heard him say anything negative about anyone. And then after I was that one night when we were it started off with us with other people, and then as they started going away, and he was also very positive to all those other people as well. And then it was just him and me, and then we finished up, and I was going home for the evening. I felt so pumped up because he made me believe in myself again during that talk. I was having a very doubtful time, and he really and I need that. I need the occasional cheerleader.
Sure.
And he was playing that role that evening because I think he saw that I needed it.
I'm just going to say quickly, you're dealing with a friend when they want the best for you. Mm-hmm. And he wanted the best for you. He wanted you to do well. He was happy when you succeeded, and he was unhappy when you weren't doing so well.
True.
Yeah.
I've run across so many people here. Oh yeah.
My experience with him is a bit different because I've been under his direct supervision when we were in North Korea, like when he was trying to keep me from ending up another warm beer. Like he also is capable of being very responsible and keeping people out of trouble. Like if he ever is in a group tour and he was seeing somebody like weird or something like that, and he was worried like,
messing up the interior.
Somebody might offend the North Koreans. Yeah, he knew how to disarm those situations. He did it to me once or twice, I think, really? Where he could just tell I was in like a mentally bad place. So like, yeah, in our last trip, we were drinking together in the Yanggakdo Hotel once, and he was telling me about Otto Warmbier's case. Like Warmbier basically just got up from the same restaurant we were sitting in, wandered away, and then whatever happened, and we don't know. And he was very seriously committed to things like that not happening on his watch. And he ran Baekdu Cultural Exchange in very specific ways to keep that sort of thing happening. Like he gave people orientations before bringing them to North Korea and things like that. It's very interesting to me that everything he did, his relationship with North Korea was never what went sour. He handled it really responsibly. It was just like being a victim of circumstance in China that got to him.
Right. And also that was another point out. That was my point I wanted to say before was that, he knew Kim Jong-un personally.
Yeah.
You would think that a friend of Kim Jong-un's is in China in jail and he would have no influence on getting him out. It looks like North Korea has no influence on what China does either.
Yeah, I've been very curious about what North Korea thinks about this, but I don't think that Kim Jong-un would intervene. I'm actually worried they might just take China's word for it and be like, oh, that was a spy I spent the weekend with? I let him go skiing with my favorite girl group. Like, yeah. I don't know. We don't know what the North Koreans think, and that really bothers me.
Yeah, I really want to hear all the stories when he gets out. And that takes me to the final part is how do you see this unfolding? What is your feelings on it?
Of course, I'm just going to be hopeful. I don't know what's going to happen. I think that what got him into this mess was luck. And I don't mean the good kind, obviously. It was just circumstance. He was there. He was traveling towards the airport to come to Seoul. And he got flagged. He was a correct person to grab, just like Kovrig was another sort of correct person for the Chinese to grab. They're not interested in locking up a couple of English teachers. It just wouldn't have any credibility, or not as much anyway. So
yeah,
he got into this mess out of just wrong place, wrong time. He got in the middle of a stupid corporate political affair. So what's going to get him out? I think something that will come up that we can't guess what it'll be. It'll be another weird circumstance that will hopefully give him an opportunity to be released, and hopefully in one piece. And I'm positive about it. I think about him every day, and I can't imagine what he's going through. I just can't. Yeah, it must be so horrible. But I'll tell you, with that guy, I mean, he's a tough guy. He really is the toughest guy possibly that I know. Way tougher than me. If I was there, man, I don't know. I think I'd break pretty quick. But this guy's he's very resilient. There's going to be some circumstance, hopefully sooner than later, that will happen. And we can't predict it. Hopefully it happens soon, and he'll be released. As well as Michael Kovrig.
Yeah.
I agree with Leo. If anybody I know has a better chance of weathering over 2 years in Chinese captivity like this, I can't think of that. He's just the kind of guy who's got the right personality that will help him survive just about any situation, including this. And I can really see it. And from what I've heard in news reports, he hasn't lost his sense of humor. This is something I wanted to bring up. We refer to Michael in the past tense a lot because we're talking about his career, which in that part of the world is over. And I also refer to his opinions in the past tense because I don't know if they have changed in the meantime. And I don't ever want to put words in his mouth. So if people hear this, we're not treating him like he's gone away. We're just, we're not sure what he's going to be like when he gets out, like what he's going to say, what his opinions are if they've changed. Maybe he'll never want to be in China and North Korea again. Maybe he'll spend the rest of his life in Canada. Mm-hmm. We don't know. I think about this more than I think about how he'll be released. I personally hope that he stays in South Korea and maybe somebody gives him a university job or something, or he writes a tell-all book, which he'll be able to finally do.
He's getting a book deal. He's definitely getting a book deal.
Like, I mean, he's sat on all these experiences in North Korea because you have to for the sake of a continued relationship. And I think it's going to be impossible for him to have that relationship anymore. So his life is going to be very different when he gets out.
It is.
And he might need support, but he's going to get a lot of support. I can say that much.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people care and a lot of people want to know more about, what he's gone through and what he thinks and everything, Yeah. He's a very important voice in the conversation about North Korea and probably soon about China too.
I think both of them will need some serious PTSD counseling after this too.
Likely, but I still think he's the guy who's going to tough it out and get through it more than anybody.
Yeah. The more I look into this, I feel like that in the end, Meng Wanzhou is going to be released back to China. And there will be a prisoner exchange.
Yeah.
So they say. Because of the ham-handed way she was arrested in the first place. There are a lot of international legal scholars who were against her arrest in the first place. So it wasn't a cut and dry case on her. It looked that I hate saying that is one sort of where China might be right in that it was kind of political. It was, but it was economic as well because of the corporate espionage issue going on.
Yeah, but none of this implies that China has the right to abduct 2 random Canadians.
No, China does not have a right to do that. No, does not have a right to do that. But also that the U.S. has not really ever tried anyone for the charges that they're trying Meng Wanzhou over as well.
Well, she's certainly been in custody for a long enough time.
She's been in custody for something that the U.S. normally doesn't charge anyone for.
Well, she hasn't been extradited.
She hasn't been extradited. No, she has not been extradited. She's been stuck.
That's been a very slow process.
Yeah, and who knows? It might. I don't think the Biden administration has the will to really see this through. I don't think this is a hill they want to die on.
I don't think they care. I really don't. And again, I'm being cynical here, but I'm sorry. I really don't see this as an issue that they're going to even look at. I don't see it. Now, they might look at something to do with when a supposed extradition date comes up that they have to deal with it or something like that, then they'll address it. But as far as the human rights side to this is not on their desk. Yeah. And that's so unfortunate. I wish it was, of course. And hey, if the Biden administration does something, I'll be the first to praise him. But I just don't think that it's going to come from them. I don't think so.
Well, that's why I think that it will just be resolved that way because they don't really care. They're like, this isn't worth our time. Send her back to China.
Yeah.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah.
That could be what ends it.
I mean, that's how.
If that extradition order is canceled, Canada will be happy to release her, and then
Michael
China will.
Kovrig's wife wants it to be
back.
resolved that way. She doesn't want Wanzhou to be extradited. She's like, send her back to China. She agrees. Thank you, Leo and John, for talking tonight. This is one of those heavy subjects, but I really just wanted to talk about it. And since we haven't really been in a bar together to talk about it lately. This might
been a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, my 1 year sobriety experiment is done, but I haven't broken it yet. So
yeah, good for you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Do we have anything you want to say to Michael, or well, it's not going to get through to him, but I don't know. Last messages.
Hey, Michael, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Listen to the others. I guess anybody who wants to know more, they can go to freemichaelspavor.com or gofundme.com/Michael Spavor.
Okay. I should point out that I did come across a Twitter account that was called something about Free the Michaels, but I looked at the content and it had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the two that I named are run by his family.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would just like to say thanks, Joe, for having us. And I tell you, it'd be a good podcast when Michael gets released. Maybe we can all get together with Michael. And I wish his family the best, because I mean, I can't imagine the stress they're going through.
Yeah.
I just can't. I know that they're good people. I've met their family way back in the day, but I met their family. I mean, unfortunately, his mother died around the year 2000, but luckily I got to meet her when she came to Seoul, and we hung out for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. So they got, he's got a great family. They're behind him. I wish them well.
Thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, stay safe.